Welcome to Liu TV, September 17th. Talking some college football on Fantasy Elite, of course. You see the overlays. Thank God Andrew's got his back. About time. It's just Andrew tonight, myself. No Zach. Zach's kid, I guess, is sick, and he's got to tend to that situation, I guess. But Andrew, we're pretty excited about this slate we got going on for this. It's Thursday. We have a game on Thursday night, and then they took 3 Saturday games. And honestly, over the whole grand scheme of things, Saturday's not too sexy of a game slate. In general, I don't feel like the games are that awesome.
I commend Grant for not falling for the trap of including that terrible Friday game, the USF Connecticut game. No one wants to touch those teams.
Dude, I'm all about supporting our sponsor. Obviously, I love Fantasy Elite, but if they threw South Florida and UConn into this thing, I probably would have called him out on TV. I probably would have called him out and been like, Grant. To be fair, though, Grant would have never done that because he's too degen to do something like that.
Of course.
He knows too much college football to put UConn against South Florida. The total is 18 points, and the spread is -1. Yeah, so this should be a good show. We have 4 games in this slate. It's going to be a Thursday night game, obviously the Auburn and Kansas State game, which is going to be an awesome one, pretty cool. I'm not going to be able to watch it because my stupid flag football game is at 9:30 at night tomorrow. Pretty pissed off about that. But it also has 3 early Saturday games, one of which I am way too degen about. Hawaii, Colorado, Marshall, Akron, and Bowling Green against Wisconsin. Which one of these games do you think you're most excited about in terms of fantasy potential?
It's got to be Kansas State Auburn, man. Just from a college football standpoint, I think this could be one of the best games of the year. I know that Kansas State's 9-point dogs, but I expect that atmosphere to be awesome. I think that it's a good contrast of styles, even though both teams kind of have running quarterbacks and rely a lot on the mobility of those quarterbacks. I don't know. I expect Kansas State to kind of air it out a little more, and I just expect it to be a really great game because I don't see either defense stopping the other one.
Yeah, Auburn has never. Last year they were so good. Obviously they made it to the championship game, but they didn't do it on defense. It wasn't because they were the Alabama defense from the late 2000s, 2008, 2009ish, where they were just dominant. It was scoring a lot of points and just doing it more than you. And
their best defense was just going on 10-play drives that took up a bunch of clock. Like that.
Exactly.
They were still giving up points, so it's not quite your traditional SEC power.
I would say that's got to be the best one, not just because of the fact that it's a good matchup between Auburn and Kansas State. You have guys like Cameron Artis-Payne and Nick Marshall and Jake Waters and Tyler Lockett. You got receivers, you got running backs, you got quarterback. Literally, we're going to talk about probably 8 dudes on these 8 to 9 guys total in that game that are really good players to look at with good pricing or worth the price. We can say, the total is 65 points, but besides that, it's on a Thursday night, and everybody loves getting some Thursday night juice in their lineups. It's like you said a while back with that Hawaii game syndrome, where you gotta bet on the Hawaii game because that's the last chance you have to make your money. This is the juice. This is what you gotta have. But besides that game, I'm really excited for this Colorado-Hawaii game. I tweeted about it a little bit the other day on my off day. You can tell what days I have off because if I tweet up a storm in the morning, I'm off that day from work because I'm just getting after it. But I love that game in terms of fantasy potential. I think this Akron and Marshall game is going to have fantasy potential, obviously, with Marshall's side of the ball. We were talking about Akron before the show. That's a sketchy situation. I don't really know what's going on there. And then Bowling Green, Wisconsin, to me, there's a lot of question marks. There's so many different ways to look at it. Does Bowling Green's awesome offense, do they keep going against a Wisconsin defense that last year that was very good? Does Wisconsin throw the ball more? Do they run it more? That's a really interesting game to look at here. But let's jump into this first one, this Kansas State-Auburn game. You tweeted about Jake Waters and how you're not going to be able to, I'm not going to be able to stop you from talking about him. So just get started and tell me about Jake Waters against Auburn.
You're lucky I was nice enough to let you get that far. But basically, just watching Waters so far this year, it seems like they're running the offense completely through him. Just watching the Iowa State game a couple weeks ago, looked very reminiscent of when Colin Klein was there. They every play basically started with obviously him getting the ball, but if he wasn't throwing it a lot of time, I think he ran for 22 carries in that game, and most of them were just the design runs where they'd spread out the field and then he'd take off. So I mean, I don't think it's impossible that he puts up a Taysom Hill type line in this game, considering Auburn's not so great defense and just the proclivity for Kansas State to basically just run the offense through him. I know they've got a few running backs, but he's got more carries than anyone else on the team, and I just see that trend escalating as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think you said it when you said the fact that he leads the team in carries and he's the quarterback. You know, last year I was never a big Jake Waters fan, and it's because they used him as the passer, the passing role. Daniel Sams would come in and he'd be the guy that would run it. You know, but with Sams gone now at McNeese State, it's like Waters has. I mean, they're giving him the ability to do both, and he's got 37 carries in 2 games. You know, he ran it 17 times against Stephen F. Austin, which to me says that's their offense is based around Waters making plays on the run through the air, because there's no way you make your starting quarterback run 17 times against a team like Stephen F. Austin if, you know, because you could get this guy injured against a team like Stephen F.A. I mean, come on, that's kind of like a crazy thing.
It's so surprising to me that it's trended this way, because when he was coming out of JUCO, he was known as the best passing JUCO recruit in the country. Not necessarily like the best quarterback, but like he was known almost like completely for his arm. I don't know what kind of juice they injected him with this offseason to get him into like Taysom Hill, Colin Klein mode, but it's clearly like he's a beast now on the ground. He's got a little shiftiness, and from what I've seen, he's not really sliding. He's trying to take people down. Like the guy is an absolute running threat, and I think they're like if you were to set the over under on carries for him this game, I think it's got to be around 17, 18.
Yeah, I was going to say 18 would be a really hard number to justify. You know, I feel like it's going to be 16 to 20-ish, which is a very, very safe bet for him. You know, he ran 20 times for 138 yards against Iowa State. Looking at his price, I mean, what do you think about his price? I think we both agree this is a great play, a play that you need to get into. His price of $22,000 on Fantasy Elite. You know, Nick Marshall's about a 1.5K, a little bit more, and Rakeem Cato's 30K. So compared to those two guys, would you rank Waters as the number one guy there based off of value and potential of upside because of the fact that, you know, he is the offense and he's only 22K compared to Nick Marshall, who's almost 24K, and he shares the fantasy value with Cameron Artis-Payne and Corey Grant?
Yeah, that you basically said he's number one for me. If you get Cato, I don't even know if you're getting a better player considering these matchups, and you're paying an extra 7.5 grand. And you kind of touched upon it with Marshall. The prices are pretty close, but it seems like Auburn always they spread the ball around so much, whether it be jet sweeps to Grant, pounding it up the middle with Cameron Artis-Payne. I mean, Marshall will probably get his fair share of points, but Auburn just scores so many different ways.
Yeah, I think I'd have to rank Waters as the number one quarterback compared to those three, or those other two at least. And I don't really see a guy cheaper than him that really gets me too excited.
Well, what about Cepho? Your boy.
Who? Cepho, you know, I like Cepho. He's a consistent player, but at 20K, I can't take him over Jake Waters for 2K less.
I want to see how deeply infatuated you were with that game.
Dude, I'm more infatuated with Nelson Spruce. He spruces me up a little bit. I love that guy right now. Let's see here. On the other side of things, we got, you know, Nick Marshall. Briefly, I think, you know, obviously everybody knows how good he is. He's a Heisman contender, but he's just so inconsistent at times because of the way that offense is run. If they're working the reads and the options, and these other guys like Cameron Artis-Payne and Corey Grant are being so successful on the run, they have no problem just abandoning Nick Marshall, him throwing it 7 times, and him getting 6 to 8 carries for a total of like 100 yards, and you just can't have that avenue. So although I don't think that happens against Kansas State, there's going to be a lot of points. I think that upside for Waters is better than Marshall. I think I'd take Marshall over Cato at 30K. What do you think?
Yeah, I would too. I while while we acknowledge that Auburn does spread the ball around, it's these big games where it seems like where they rely on Marshall more than they do in other ones, whether it be the Missouri game last year, Alabama last year. It seems like he has bigger games in bigger games for the team. So while you'll probably see touchdowns from other guys on the ground as well, like I expect a good game out of Marshall, and at the 7K less than Cato, I think it's pretty clear in my opinion at least that he's the pick.
Okay, so with these running backs for Auburn, we see Cameron Artis-Payne is 12.7 thousand. That seems very low for a guy that's going to get his carries, that's going to get his touches in the red zone at the goal line. I mean, that's a very underpriced. That's a really good option to me. I think he has to be one of your first couple picks just because of consistency and ceiling that he has, or yeah, how high his ceiling is. Would you consider taking him in your top 2-3 picks?
I think I'm prioritizing quarterback, but right after that, definitely Cap's one of the top picks. If you miss on him, I mean, this slate's awesome because there are a lot of good players at each position where if you don't get the top guy, it's not the end of the world. But that being said, he's probably the best value, I think, at running back.
Yeah, and typically I'd say 16.7 thousand for Melvin Gordon is like super cheap. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he couldn't really get it going against Western Illinois kind of scares me, and I'll get into that a little bit more when we get to this Wisconsin game. We'll go to that one next, probably. Let's see here. But I think Kevin Artis-Payne, man, Cap's the guy. He's got to be one of the top 3 picks for me. I'm going to look at Jake Waters first, and I'm going to look at Cap and maybe a receiver or so that can be there. Obviously quarterback you need to prioritize due to how many points you can get.
Let's say I take Waters first, and then would you take Marshall or would you take Cap? Well, I guess you could have both, so that's probably 2-3, you think?
Dude, with this offense, I think you could go both and be fine, especially since it's only going to cost you like $36,000.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is this: between those two guys, you're getting 250 to 300 yards rushing and 3 to 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I agree.
And that to me is it's almost like you're picking, I don't know. You're almost like you're picking T.J. Yeldon and Derrick Henry from the Alabama. It's like you're going to get touchdowns and yardage from those guys, or typically they're kind of struggled a little bit this year, but typically those two studs are going to get you your points, like James White and Melvin Gordon last year.
Right.
It's not necessarily going to.
The fact that you bring up Henry and Yeldon's a good point, though, that they've played cupcakes so far for the most part. The first game was a little more competitive, but this is the kind of game where Cap, Marshall, Corey Grant, they'll get more carries because you figure it to be a competitive game. So I mean, I think it benefits them that they're playing a better opponent.
Yeah, I think they're going to get more competitive carries, which is not really that big of a deal with how good their offense is against every single team they play. The fact that they're going to have teams that can score points on them easier is probably what is the best part about it. Looking at, Corey Grant for 9K is a solid play. I saw someone say something online. I can't remember what article it was, talking about Corey Grant as a good value play for cheap, because he's going to get 10 touches. And it's it's crazy to think he's going to get 10 touches and he's probably going to get 90 yards. Like the guy averages 8 to 9 yards a carry. He's going to get himself a touchdown. Cameron Artis-Payne is going to be going 80 yards down the field, and they're going to need to take him out, get a breather, and boom, Corey Grant's in. They run like a speed sweep, and there's your touchdown. On the other side of things, while we have 2 great running backs for Auburn, on the other side, Kansas State, it's like, what do I do here? Charles Jones, Demarcus Robinson. I've seen both. I've read it both ways, where it's like Demarcus Robinson's the better talent, and then I look at the stats, and Charles Jones has obviously the better stats. He has 4 touchdowns, and I don't think Robinson has 1. And I've seen it go both ways with who's more talented. If you had to pick one, would you roll with Jones, considering he's the starter and has the better stats?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's about a differential of $3,000, but we're playing for today. We're not playing for who's going to be the starter 3 weeks from now. So I think that it's got to be Jones without a question. Just considering what you said, that he's got 4 touchdowns, Robinson has none. I mean that means something. I think at this point.
Yeah, but I think Kansas State really the running backs. I don't mind picking Charles Jones for the 10K or
Right.
Demarcus Robinson for 8K. I mean, I wouldn't pick them in the top half of my picks. Maybe Charles Jones because of the red zone carries. You kind of like it's almost like you're covering your tail when you pick him and you have Jake Waters. You know,
Yeah,
you're getting
he's not at the top of my queue though. I think that's the
no. I think towards the end of the draft, you see Charles Jones still there, and you think, well, I have Jake Waters.
yeah.
If anybody's going to vulture Jake Waters' touchdowns, it's going to be Charles Jones. So I think that's a good safety pick there, a blanket almost. Not a bad price, but not one that I'm going to get overly excited about. I'd rather have Corey Grant for 9K, which is kind of crazy considering 10 to 12 touches for him.
Agreed.
But I think that the guy that you need to have on this offense, Kansas State, is their receiver, Tyler Lockett. The guy has been pretty unbelievable in the last year and a half. The fact that he's put up games with 40 and 50 fantasy points with multiple touchdowns and 10-plus catches, he's kind of done it all kind of crazily. 17K, the highest receiver on the board. Where do you rank him maybe compared to the rest of the guys real briefly and in general in this offense against Auburn?
So I love Lockett. Like it just seems like, especially last year, and I mean against Stephen F. Austin, it's difficult to assess anything, but he's Waters' dude. When he needs a big pass, he's always looking Lockett's way. That being said, I think if you're going to get Lockett in this slate, it's tough to fit 2 stud quarterbacks in. So you got to kind of figure out what best going to be best for your strategy. I mean, Lockett's definitely awesome. He could go for 200 yards any game, but it might come at the expense of, instead of playing Waters and Marshall or Marshall and Cepho, you might have to play like McAvoy or one of the other less than ideal options there. How do you feel about it?
I mean, I think Lockett's a very good option here. I think this game is going to have so many points that Waters is going to be fine passing the ball. Well, I'd rather have Waters more because I think his running ability is there. Lockett's the only. Do you even know another good receiver for Kansas State off the top of your head?
Yeah, I looked up a couple, but I don't think I'll be drafting them.
I think was it maybe Curry Sexton?
Yeah.
I mean, we're both pretty heavily into this college football thing, and the fact that one of the tells you where we're at, or maybe where that offense is at. I think it's more based off the running and the Lockett and the air. But he's kind of one of those GPP plays where you can have a huge game because he's such a big play receiver. Well, guess what? If Waters is going crazy on the ground, they're going to be biting towards him, and maybe they do a play action, they go deep with him. So I think, right there, Lockett's a good option. 70K is a little pricey, but I think I could do it.
Okay.
All right, I keep having something in my throat, and it's really, really bothering me. But last week we tried giving away a T-shirt, and nobody guessed the Pirates to win by the correct amount. My Hokies lost. Sadly. All my teams, I swear, Adam, our boss man, Lou, his teams just straight dominated mine. Virginia Tech lost to his ECU team, and then my Lions lost to his Panthers. It was brutal. Maybe we'll make it a little bit easier this time. So if you tweet me or Andrew or both or Lou Dogs, tweet one of us here, okay? Let us know. I want to know who's going to score the most touchdowns in this Kansas State-Auburn game. It should be pretty easy. All right, we're going to go by first one to do it, so maybe hop on that quick. We're going to give away a Lou Dogs T-shirt. So pretty much you're going to tell me which player in this game is going to score the most touchdowns. So, I'll tell you right now, it's going to be Waters. It's going to be Marshall. It could be Lockett. It could be Cameron Payne. Those are really your best 4 options. Maybe throw a Corey Grant in there as well to maybe be a little contrarian there. So make sure you jump on that. Tweet at me anytime before tomorrow night's game starts, and then we'll be giving away a T-shirt. If nobody wins that one, we're going to get raffle tickets and just give away tickets. Or maybe we'll just email people and be like, give me your street address. We're sending you a shirt. Because We need to give one away here. Lou Dogs has been, Adam's been trying to give it away for a little bit of time now. So, you know what? Let's get in this Marshall game and just get out of the way because these other two games really, I think, are the bigger ones we need to look at. This Marshall game against Akron. Tell me like your main thought process about this game heading into it.
So when I was trying to construct the roster, I found it difficult to do with Cato unless you're really taking some of Zach's made up players on your team, and even some low end ones at that. So I don't think Cato's the top option for me just in terms of roster construction. He's awesome. He'll probably throw for 4 TDs, but that price relative to the other top quarterbacks just doesn't do it for me. That being said, he's got a bunch of options that are all pretty decently priced. Devontae Allen, Angelo Jean-Louis, Devin Johnson, Tommy Schuler. Schuler has been his dude forever. I think they've known each other since they're like 5 years old or something, but he hasn't really lit it up so far this year. If this slate had a tight end as a requirement, Devin Johnson would be awesome because he's actually Marshall's running back, but was listed as a tight end coming into the year. His price is pretty great, I think, at $91.66. Angelo Jean-Louis seems like he's kind of been a big play guy so far, boom or bust, but definitely at $7,000, that's not bad. And Devontae Allen had a huge game last week, and at 11 Gs, that's not terrible either. So I think all of his options, all of Cato's top options, are pretty reasonably priced. What do you think about it?
I think all the options are reasonably priced except the one guy, like you said, Raheem Cato. I just can't see myself paying $30K for a guy who's only, going to put his points up through the air. I think I would rather go with a guy like a Taysom Hill for $30K, or even like a Jake Waters if he was $30K over. It's just the value you can get on the ground is so much more. I think you nailed it though. I think all these receivers, Schuler, probably Jean-Louis, is probably. I'm going to French. Those say Allen. Devon Johnson is not a tight end. You just said that. That's kind of confusing. I'll make sure Grant knows that because I was like, Devon Johnson? I thought their guy, Eric Fronapfel, I believe I said that correctly there.
That's true. Johnson was a tight end last year, so not a big deal.
They just moved him to running back?
Yeah.
That's a crazy transition. But, yeah, Eric.
Yeah.
What's that?
He's been awesome. I mean, he's amazing value at $91.66.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, you're going to have flex spots. No worries there. You're going to be able to fit him in if you really think he's valuable and worth it. And I think, like you said, with how good he's been, he's going to be worth it. They're going to be up early. They're going to try to run it at least a little bit. It's not like there's some crazy Fresno State offense that only passes it even when they're up 100. Or Cincinnati, by the way, who was throwing the ball up by like 21 at the end of the game against Toledo with a minute and a half left. Which was like, by the way, he threw it to Shaq Washington for a touchdown and almost made it. Remember we talked about how I said I'd rather have Shaq Washington than Deontay Greenberry?
I do.
He made that which didn't work out, but he made it a little bit closer for me. Some pity points there. But yeah, besides those receivers who are all, a pretty appropriately priced, a little bit better than maybe some upside there with each of those picks. I'm trying to see if I can get the over-under really quick. It's 61.5 points with Marshall being a 9-point underdog or 9-point favorite. So you're looking at, my math, if it's correct, would put us at like 35 points here for Marshall and about low 20s for Akron. Do we know what we want to do with Akron? The stats are very awkward.
They're very strange. I think there's enough good options where, unless you really go with a bunch of high-end guys, and you feel the need to go with maybe Chisholm from Akron, who hasn't really shown that much this year, even though he's their running back. I don't know. I'm pretty much avoiding Akron players.
Yeah. They lost 21-3 to the only real team they played, Penn State. Let me pull up the box score really quick just to give an idea here. Their quarterback is Kyle Pohl. He had, of course. Let's see, Kyle Pohl. Where are you at? 24 for 46, 200 yards, no touchdowns. Their running game was very awkward. 7 carries for Chisholm and Hunley, but nobody really did well. This is an offense. I don't see. I mean, Marshall's defense isn't like great. I think they're worse than Penn State, but I mean, I guess you could look at Bickley and Zach Durazio or whatever were their best players receiving, but their numbers weren't that great. Durazio is 7K, and that other guy, where is he even at? You'll have to find him here. I just don't see a lot of potential in this Akron game, or Akron side of the football. I think there's so many other players in these next 2 games, in this Marshall or that first game we talked about, that would be better to look at. Hawaii at Colorado. Man, I'm like weirdly in love with this game. I kind of tweeted about it a little bit. The total's in the 60s. Hawaii's going away from home for the first time this season, and their pass defense is brutal on the road. At least last year it was. They played USC, Fresno State, and San Jose State at home, and their touchdown to interception ratio is 8-6. Okay, pretty dang good for 3 games, or for 3 of like their 5 or 6 home games. On the road last year, in the 6 games, they had 19 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So that just screams Cepho, Nelson Spruce. I think there's no reason for you not to go there. Nelson Spruce has 2 touchdowns every game. He's pulling a Paul Richardson +1. The guy's been great. And Cepho's been, honestly, a very consistent player. 20K. I don't see how you don't consider him as a top couple quarterback there. What do you think about this passing attack at home for Colorado?
I like your research, man. I think that there's a lot behind it, and I mean, I could definitely see it paying dividends. Everything you're saying is sound. That being said, Spruce is pretty expensive at 16.9, but if I don't get Marshall and Waters, which I anticipate only being able to get one of them, I think Cepho might be my next option in terms of quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I just think that, Spruce has turned himself really into like a top 5 fantasy receiver. I mean, is there a guy that's been put up better production than Nelson Spruce so far, besides maybe some crazy Western Kentucky player who had like 17 touchdowns in the first game?
It pains me to admit stuff like that because you don't want to admit that Nelson Spruce is that good.
The guy that comes out of nowhere. Like, I knew his name last year.
He was fine. He was like 50 catches for like 800 yards. Or like he was Paul Richardson's the guy behind him. He was, I don't know, he was like a decent 5th, 6th receiver on your team. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was just kind of weird. It was kind of crazy to think that a guy like that just all of a sudden just turned up to being, boom, this #1 threat that's got like 35 targets in 3 games.
I mean, he's not Katie Cannon, but no one is.
He's not KD Cannon, yeah. The guy, unbelievable. You had to throw a KD Cannon there for you, and especially with the fact
be in the slate, even though he's on a bye week. He could still drop 20.
He can still drop 20. He's not even going to be playing. The second receiver for Colorado is Shea Fields. He's got like 21 catches. Doing research on that team, you see Spruce with 24 catches. You see Fields with 21, and then the next closest guy is Bryce Bobo with 8. I mean, the only guys with touchdown catches are Shields and Spruce. Those are the guys that are getting probably, if you had to look at the numbers, probably 70% of targets are going to those 2 guys. Not unbelievable amounts. Why he's going to be giving up points, especially on the road. You got to love those 2. And Fields at 10K. Last year it was Paul Richardson getting, the main majority of all these fantasy points. This year, Shea Fields is getting some of it with these catches. It makes me wonder what Paul Richardson would have done with this Cepho compared to last year's Cepho, because Cepho last year was really not that great.
He wasn't, but wasn't he a true freshman who wasn't even prepared to be a starter last year? Like, they just put him in because Connor Wood, they finally realized that experiment wasn't going to work. And
yeah.
He was a heralded recruit. Like, he was supposed to be the next guy for them. I don't think that they expected Cepho to be playing last year. I think they ripped the red shirt right off him. So I mean, I don't think it's overly surprising that he's taken a leap. Granted, it's probably been a little bigger than we expected.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that they didn't want you definitely put the nail on the head there. I don't think they thought that he was going to be like winning games for him because clearly it's sad to admit I watched some of these Colorado games last year and they would be like just feeding it to Richardson and then like running the ball nonstop. There were like no deep routes. They didn't want him to make any mistakes. You know, he'd be throwing it 20 times in a game where they're losing by 60. Like they just did not want his his confidence to get crazy low. They definitely padded him a little bit, and made sure he was fine the whole season. They kind of let loose, and honestly, this is like the guy. This is like your perfect example of an Andrew Katz guy has a bad true freshman year, and he has the whole off season, and then he has a dominant second year. This is like your guy
He is, dude. I wish I actually considered that when I was doing my seasonal drafts for him at
because
least.
because he has been great so far. Uh, I think I'd rank him third in terms of quarterbacks tomorrow, or for tomorrow's beginning slate, obviously. Um, what do you think about the running back situation in Colorado? Christian Powell's the starter, but he really doesn't get a whole lot of carries. He's got 35 carries on the season. Michael Adkins, the second, has 23 carries, and Cepho has 20. So not seeing a whole lot of action in the run game uh, in terms of one main starter. Do you think Christian Powell is worth 10K, or would you rather have maybe like a Charles Jones at the same price?
Um, Geez, Atkins is really cheap, if I were to say who would I think is going to have a better game, it's probably Powell. That being said, I think there's enough decent running backs in the slate where 10K is probably a little too much for Powell, given his expected volume and like the way he's been used this year.
hmm Yeah, I think.
How do you feel? You think this could be more a game where Colorado puts up points through the air?
Yeah, I think most of these points are gonna be through the air. Sure, Powell might score a touchdown, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't really be surprised by it. Like if I have no, let's say I'm at 11K and I really don't want to stoop that low in salary, I might just go Powell if Charles Jones is gone. But that would be like a last pick thing. I really wouldn't. I mean, I could see Powell not being picked in a lot of drafts tomorrow. Like tomorrow, I just don't see him as a guy that people are going to be reaching for at all, and he just gets forgotten about. Totally understandable to me in that situation.
I agree.
I think most of these points are going to be through the air. On the other side, we have Hawaii's quarterback is Akeka Woolsey, 12K. Nothing really to be excited about there. I think when he was named the starter, a couple of us, I know I was a little excited to see, hey, a sophomore like in our dynasty league. I was like, how much do I want to put up for this guy? He hasn't really done a whole lot, and he's been at home, so I can't imagine him doing a lot of damage on the road. Is that kind of what you're thinking as well?
Yeah, I'm not giving him any real consideration for this slate.
Yeah, it'd have to be. I don't know who the fourth quarterback yet is in this slate that I want to go after, but actually I do know who it is, and it's definitely not Woolsey. I think it's one touchdown pass in the year. They have an interesting situation with their running backs. Joey Iosefa is out, or he was out last game. Make sure you stay updated on that stuff for Saturday's game. But Stephen Laka Laka, the best running back name in the NCAA, Stephen Laka Laka should be starting. 32 carries last game, so the ability to touch, to get the rock, his ability to play a factor in this game is there. I just don't know if the talent is there compared to like Iosefa. Would you be picking him at 13K? He had 130 yards and I think a touchdown last week, but it was all on 32 carries. So what do you think?
No, man. I considering the price, considering the prices of some of the other running backs in the slate, we've already touched on Cap, Grant, Charles Jones is cheaper, even that. I don't know. Charles Jones or Laka Laka, who would you rather have? The difference is about 2.4.
Mm, man, that's tough. I think
That volume could be significant, even though I think we both think that Colorado's going to put up points, so I don't know if Hawaii's going to be able to run the ball all day. That being said, even against Oregon State, when they were down like 28 points in the fourth quarter, they were still running the ball. So I think you'd have to kind of game plan to fit Laka Laka into your lineup at 13 grand, considering there's a bunch of other good options out there as well that you'll probably want to spend on. But I think he's worth consideration for sure.
I think because it's Colorado, it's not like they're going on the road and facing USC or something. If it was USC with their defense, although to be fair, they got rocked against Boston College's running game. I'd probably rather have Laka Laka than Charles Jones, but not by a whole lot. I think Charles Jones probably comes close to value-wise compared to Laka Laka, but just the fact that he's going to get 30 touches, the starter, Stukis, hit me up with the fact that Iosefa has a broken leg or ankle injury now, he says, so he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, so it's a safe play there. Colorado's defense isn't stellar. I'd rather go Laka Laka for points, especially, or for sure there. He wanted to ask about Philip Lindsay, which I'm going to call one of Zach's made-up players, because that's what only him would know, Philip Lindsay. I looked him up real quick. 7 carries 2 games ago, 9 carries last game. He's a running back. He's one of the guys getting a bunch of those carries there for Colorado. 5K. I guess if you need a 5K guy, I don't know if there's a bunch that are out there that are really screaming our names, but
there's a 5K guy I would prefer to him that we'll discuss in the next game, actually.
All right, so maybe we rank him 2, 3 in terms of 5K action or 5K players, but he's probably going to get 8 to 10 touches against Hawaii. What he does with them, it's going to be tough. A freshman, third or fourth game into the season. That playbook's a little bit smaller for a guy like him, and I think I'd probably look elsewhere unless I really need a 5K guy, because he's only got like 80 rushing yards on the season in 3 games. So kind of tough for him to have a major impact on the game when he's only gotten 17, 18 carries in the whole season so far. Really quick, Hawaii receivers, Pedroza has 20 catches. And 9K, I don't think that's a terrible price, but the fact that his touchdown numbers are probably going to be very limited, I can't really see myself going him. And then Marcus Kemp's their other receiver. He's got like 12 or 13 catches, and he's about the same price. So I'd rather have Pedroza over Kemp, but I don't really see myself really targeting either of these 2 picks. Bowling Green, Wisconsin, really, man, I was going to say one of my favorite games here, but these other Auburn game and that Colorado game are so awesome for me. It's not a distant third for this game here. Some value with Melvin Gordon. Talk maybe a little bit about Gordon going into this game against Bowling Green and how great Tevin Coleman. I don't know if you know who Tevin Coleman is.
I know you do, buddy.
My total man crush, because of the fact that I said from the very beginning he's a top 5 running back. But tell me a little bit about Melvin Gordon against this defense, what you think is going to happen, what you think his potential is in this game.
So I wish I actually tried to find out more about his injury situation, because he's been banged up in both these first 2 games, right? And
yeah, he had that hip injury against LSU, and I imagine that's what slowed him down a little bit against Western Illinois.
Right. So, I mean, they've had a bye week to rest up, so I don't think there's too much to be concerned with in terms of his injury. That being said, obviously the most expensive running back at 16.7. My general feel in this game is they struggle with Western Illinois. So I would expect this to be at least somewhat competitive, especially considering McAvoy's not exactly going to light it up through the air. Wisconsin does love to rely on that running game, but it doesn't seem like it's been as dominant as it's been in years past, just where whoever they put in can just take a touchdown 80 yards on any play. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing for Gordon in that he'll probably play a full game, or at least into the fourth quarter. At 16.7, it's tough from a roster construction standpoint. If I were to guess what I think he'll run for in this game, I would go 170 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, see, See, I'm conflicted because my guy Tevin Coleman had a stellar game against Bowling Green. All right, but what people don't realize is, or maybe they don't remember, his first half was really not good in terms of elite running back status. What he would do against them, really not that great. And I just fear that Bowling Green is going to do what they did to Indiana in the first half and is force Nate Sudfeld to make it happen, which he did, and that's why they backed off and gave Coleman a better chance at running it, and that's when he blew up for 3 touchdowns and 8,000 rushing yards. So, although Melvin Gordon, number one running back, he's a top 3 running back talent before the season, easily, possibly, between him and Gurley is 1 and 2 right there. The fact that he's 16K is ridiculous value. I think you have to really consider him. I think, like you said, you really like him. I have no problem. I mean, is there a chance he goes for 80 yards and a touchdown? Yeah, there's a chance, in my opinion.
I mean,
the chance is very high.
That being said, I think he's going for around 170 and 2. It's still, I don't know if I make him anywhere near a top pick. Maybe as the rounds go later, if my opponent's clearly gravitating towards other player and he's still around, and I think I could squeeze Gordon in, I go for him. But I don't know. There's so many good cheaper players in this slate that if I take Gordon, I probably have to squeeze a couple of 5K guys in there that really could hurt my overall chances of winning. So to clarify, I think he's going to have a good game, potentially a really good game, but I don't know. It obviously makes your situation a lot tougher from a drafting standpoint to try and fit him.
I just don't see, I think there is a chance that he doesn't do well, but I mean, he's probably going to be very well over 100 yards and at least a touchdown. Just the way that Wisconsin can run the football in general. I think, like you said, though, there's so many players in that 11 to 12K range that make me feel a little more comfortable pushing him down the line of picks. And the fact that Cameron Artis-Payne is 12K, which is also underpriced for a guy like him, it really makes me say, hey, I want Cameron Artis-Payne, a guy that's a lock to me compared to Gordon, who struggled against Western Illinois. I mean, which guy would you rather have, Cameron Artis-Payne for 12K or Gordon for 16K?
Artis-Payne, and I think it just comes back to the fact that there's so many great mid-price guys in this slate that it seems like some of the slates we've had, there's been really high-priced guys and a lot of cheaper guys that haven't, and you've been okay with picking the higher price guys because there's not so much in between value that you want to scoop up. But I think this slate's loaded up on middle price guys that you want to have on your roster.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd rather have Cap than Gordon. So with that analysis of the Wisconsin game, with the fact that Bowling Green's defensive style could force Tanner McAvoy to be more relevant to this offense, I do not see a game in which Wisconsin is throwing the football 10 times, with McAvoy having 50 rushing yards and that's it. I see McAvoy as a very solid pick. I wrote about him in this game, or I didn't. Did I write about him? I wrote about him at least in my K Dreaming. I don't remember if I put him on my rankings, but a really big potential pick here because I think that they could force the hand and make him pass it. And he passed well against Western Illinois. Now, is Western Illinois some stud defense? No, clearly not. Okay, but Bowling Green just gave up 42 points or 45 points to Indiana. It was a good offense. This team is going to struggle to shut down teams. They put up a ton of fantasy points for Western Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. So I could see Tanner McAvoy combining for 3 touchdowns. And at 12K and the fact that he could run for another 75, I see him as my 4th quarterback. I could see if you wanted to go him over Cepho, but that would be more of a kind of a wackier 3-man type game pick, or if there are games like a 6-man type game, a 6-man type game pick there. Do you think McAvoy has the potential for 3 touchdowns against Bowling Green?
I initially wasn't sold on him, but the more I look at the slate, I like the prospect of having him on my team. I definitely think I'd rather have him over the Bowling Green quarterback, Napke. I kind of just see him having a rougher day than he had against Indiana. I mean, I think I could probably throw for 200 on Indiana, and in the other I guess, game and a half game he's played since taking over for Matt Johnson. He didn't exactly light it up, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but
No,
that
he struggled the game where he came in for Matt Johnson, and a wise analyst from Lou Dogs actually wrote about James Napke last week and said, "Hey, potential's there against a team like Indiana," and he was correct. Now, what does that analyst feel about James Napke this week? I don't really want to use anybody against Wisconsin's defense. That defense is a little scary to me. They haven't been stellar. They didn't dominate LSU. They didn't do anything crazy against them. The thing is, they run so many plays that a guy like Travis Green, their star running back at 12K, is a legitimate option to me. But I don't foresee Napke as a guy I want to roll. Is Green probably the only guy you're looking at them for them, or do you think there's anybody I'm missing?
So I think if you're really looking for a 5K guy, you have to consider their second running back, Fred Coppett, who's been vulturing TDs from Green, and I mean he's got 23 carries on the year. Not a ton, but at 5K, if you're struggling, like I think he's probably the best 5K value. He's averaging almost 7 yards a carry. Guy's clearly got some talent.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the fact that he's going to vulture touchdowns, or that possibility is there, puts me, liking him ahead of what's his name, Lindsey from Colorado, because Lindsey doesn't seem like a guy that's gotten any carries by the goal line, and that's
Right.
an easy 6 points right there. So I'd rather have this running back from Bowling Green, the backup Coppett, than Lindsey from Colorado.
Where would you rank Corey Clement in your running back ranks
Mm,
in the
that's
slate?
tough, man. That's. I think I'd
8,700
rather
is
have.
not bad.
It's not. That's the thing that's so enticing about it. I think I'd rather have Charles Jones than Corey Clement, if that sounds crazy.
I think I'd rather have Clement.
Clement, man, I wish like he had done. He was supposed to going into the season. Wisconsin was like, I'm on the whole like team stack running backs. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm all over it, and I was all over Corey Clement early on, saying, hey, against some of these teams, you're going to have a big potential to stack Gordon and Clement and like strike big. And Clement really hasn't done that. He only has 100 rushing yards and a touchdown this season.
Yeah, but let's think
Against
about it. They played Western Illinois one game, and they played LSU opening night, breaking in a new quarterback.
yeah, but
I think it's too tough to put too much stock.
he had 9 carries against Western Illinois. Like just 9? That seems a little low, doesn't it?
It does.
That was
That
the
being
weird thing.
that being said, I like him as an option. Like if he's there for me at a flex spot, where after I filled out my first six spots on my roster, I would definitely take him at 8,700. That's a nice way to fill out a roster, I think.
Yeah, and I mean he got 15 carries in the first game, but he also, Gordon didn't have one rushing attempt in the second half. So I like him at the price. I think I'd rather have Charles Jones because of his attempt, vulturing touchdown possibility, plus the fact that he's going to get 10 to 15 carries in a high-scoring game. But this rushing attack has really underproduced in the 2 games so far. Yeah, I mean, that's how I would look at that situation. The receivers in this game are enticing, interesting here. I know I said I didn't like a whole lot of guys on this Bowling Green. Really, I just said Travis Green was the only guy I'd really strongly consider, other than maybe Coppett, his backup. Astukis wants to know a little bit about Roger Lewis. He's 13K and a PPR guy, obviously. I mean, did you have eyes for him before this, or is Astukis kind of brought in a guy that you haven't really thought about so far?
No, I know he's the leading receiver so far, even though that he wasn't necessarily projected to be at the start of the year. I mean, he's got 30 catches, close to 400 yards. That being said, I don't have a ton of faith in the Bowling Green passing attack in this game, and I think did we say he's 13K? Is that right?
13K, yeah.
That's too much for me. I think there's guys I just like more. Whether it be we didn't even talk about these guys, but I mean DeQuell Williams or Sammy Coates, uh, any of the four Marshall options. Maybe not Gene Lewis, but um, yeah, I just think there's receivers that I like more on the slate.
Yeah, yeah. I think I like. We didn't bring up Sammy Coates and Daquel Williams, two guys that I think they're both at 9K. I think I'd like them way more than Roger Lewis. Yeah, he's got like 30 catches in 3 games. The competition hasn't been strong. He's got the backup quarterback in a game that really is one that's going to be a tough matchup for him. If he was like 10K or lower, that would significantly help me in how I thought about him. But I don't really see Roger Lewis producing like he has been against a team like Wisconsin. On the other side, if I like Tanner McAvoy and the fact that I think Bowling Green is going to be early and try and put some guys in the box and stop Melvin Gordon, I mean, that's how I'd attack this game if I was Bowling Green defensively, put the pressure on McAvoy. I think you have to look at Alex Erickson, their receivers at 13K. He's their number one guy. He had 10 catches last game, over 100 yards, a touchdown. I think for a number one receiver against a team that's going to give you a bunch of possessions with their high-tempo offense, Bowling Green, you're going to see a lot of possessions for Wisconsin, more than they're used to, something that's good for everybody on that team. I think Alex Erickson is a guy you should consider, not early, maybe mid to late, but you'd have to have a lot of confidence in Tanner McAvoy. Do you have any opinions here on Erickson?
I know it seems like I'm probably shooting down every high-priced guy, but I don't know. At 13K again, like unless I've gone through the draft and I found myself with a bunch of extra room at the end of it, I don't think I'm taking Erickson.
Yeah, the 13K.
That being said, I'm not driving the McAvoy bandwagon, unlike you. So if you're gonna go halfway, and you might as well go all the way.
I'm not driving the McAvoy bandwagon. Okay, Tevin Coleman is, and I have funded Tevin Coleman in this journey. All right, so I'm not doing it. I'm just funding it. All right. I mean, 13K is pricey. I get it. I really can't get mad at you for it, but I also have confidence in McAvoy. So.
All right, how about this?
How I look at
Would you rather have Alex Erickson or Tommy Schuler?
Dude, Tommy Schuler, I don't even want to talk about Tommy Schuler, but I will because you asked. That guy has underachieved so much this year. In the games that they put up like 100 points, he's got 4 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Like, what is his deal?
It's been 3 games.
Did he sleep with Raheem Cato's girlfriend? Like, what did he do to piss off Cato to only get, like, 6 catches? The guy was, like, a lock for 9 to 10 catches a game last year, it felt like. And he's getting 5 to 6, which is still nice, but I'd rather have Tommy Schuler. It's a safer pick. It's just much safer.
Oh, come on. That was your opportunity to go bold.
Dude, I don't have that bold DNA. I don't have that strain like you do, man. I don't have that strain. Yeah, it's just a much safer pick. Now, this is one of those things where if Fantasy Elite had a 3, if you were going 3-man, 4-man, going a guy like Erickson later on, because I guarantee you Erickson is there's not going to be many Tevin Coleman train riders, okay? So there's not going to be a whole lot of guys that go on Erickson early. I think Erickson could win you some money in a 3-man. So keep him in mind, man. I think that's a good pick. I'm probably going to crash and burn, but we'll see how it goes. Is there anybody else in this game that really, I mean, for the amount of points that could be scored, it's based off of Gordon, McAvoy, Clement, Erickson, and then Travis Green on the other side with maybe Napke doing wonders for 16K, but I don't think you take that chance.
It is such a chance too. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he threw for 108 yards, and I mean I guess there's that offense. I mean, it's already been chronicled so much everything about how it's supposed to be an explosive offense. So I mean, just the style they run, there's potential there for a huge day, but you're definitely taking a very big risk in my opinion.
Yeah, you'd really have to not like Tanner McAvoy, and you'd really have to have some extra salary cap to go uh, to go James Napke against VMI. Okay, 31 passing attempts, 237 yards, one rushing touchdown, one passing touchdown, one interception. So his game really wasn't that stellar, and that was against VMI. So what do you think? Now he's at home. What do you think Wisconsin's going to do to him on the road? It's probably his first road start. Yeah, Indiana was at home. His first road start. I mean, seems dangerous for 16K to go Napke. Overall, a very good slate. I'm very happy with it. It should be really exciting here. Just to recap here, we have the Auburn-Kansas State game is on tomorrow night. If you tweet me or tweet Lou Dogs or tweet Andrew even, I don't know why you'd ever tweet Andrew, but if you did, let us know who you think's going to have the most touchdowns in this game by a player. So I'm looking at Marshall, Waters, Lockett, Corey Grant, Cameron Artis-Payne, those guys. Tell me who you think's going to score the most touchdowns in that game and how many he's going to score. Who do you think's going to do it? Who do you think's going to win someone a Lou Dogs t-shirt tomorrow, Andrew?
Yeah, do I have to answer that? It's Waters, kid. Come on.
Waters. That's Waters.
It's not a question.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, the guy that's like a little contrarian and says I'm going away from the quarterbacks, which I'm guaranteeing should. I mean, really, Marshall's a very good pick. Waters is probably the favorite if you ask like a betting Vegas. I think Cameron Artis-Payne is the third choice. I think Corey Grant is not really that great of a choice. But, I mean, does Lockett have a chance of beating out Jake Waters? Is that even possible?
He could catch 3 TDs. He seems like he's always been that ultimate boomer bust game, and when he goes off, man, it's like 250 yards and 4 TDs.
That's true. He's such a big boom guy. I'll say this. If for some reason – I mean, not for some reason. If Waters and Lockett have the same amount of touchdowns in terms of pass, if they both end with 3 touchdowns, the tie goes to Lockett because that's more deserving than Waters.
We're not counting passing TDs. Stop it.
We're not counting passing TDs?
How could the wide receiver ever win if you're counting pass TDs?
Because it's my game and I say how I want it to be, Andrew.
Fine.
All right. Let's just get someone to win this thing, right? We need to give away a Lou Dogs t-shirt, and then we can figure out the rest, all right? Tweet Andrew, tweet myself. You see our Twitter at Taglines, and Lou Dogs is just at Lou Dogs, LUDAWGS. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Friday night we'll be back. We're going to be talking some of the college football games for Saturday. Let's see if we can load up the games real quick. Oh, you know what? We have another slate that starts off on Friday, which we did not cover, which is inconvenient to see about now. Andrew, how do you... It starts tomorrow, and you know what he did? He added a UConn in South Florida.
Did you cut out the first 5 minutes of the show?
No.
Hopefully he doesn't see that.
Well, you know what? It's better because at least it's not one of 3 games. It's one of 4 games. Sure. Iowa, Pittsburgh is in there, Tulane, Duke, and Maryland, Syracuse.
So can we just say that we've already spent enough time on that game?
Yeah, we've spent too much time on UConn and South Florida. Let's not get into these other 3 games. Let's instead send out some tweets throughout the next 24 hours, 36 hours, and get people prepared for then. We can do a brief rundown real quick. C.J. Brown, Terrell Hunt is obviously a great play. Anthony Boone.
How can you say that?
What?
I would never play Terrell Hunt.
Terrell Hunt's on my top 5 quarterback list, so obviously he's a great play, Andrew.
All right.
Receivers, Jamison Crowder is underpriced at 14K. Stefan Diggs finally had a good game last week. Tyler Boyd is 13K, which is just ridiculous with how good he is. Isaac Blakeney, Max McCaffrey, and then a very, very interesting showdown. I want to hear your take on this. James Connors, 21K against Iowa, who's given up like 89 total rushing yards in the season. Okay, so what's more likely to happen? James Conner goes over 100 yards rushing, or James Conner goes under 100 yards rushing?
Over.
Over by a lot or by a little?
No, I think that game's gonna be over in like 65 minutes, and Connor's gonna have like 40 carries for 110 yards.
Yeah, I was going to say if he gets it, it's going to be by barely. I don't think his yards per carry is going to be anything to write home about. I just don't think. Um, Man, that Iowa defense for a while has always been, and they've been force feeding James Conner the football. He's not going to have a great yards per carry. But anyways, so there's your analysis on that Friday to Saturday slates. We'll be making sure we'll be tweeting you guys some information about that. Otherwise, appreciate you guys coming on and watching us. Please, someone win the T-shirts, and that way we can get it
Everybody
going
gets a
there.
car.
Everybody, would you say everybody just gets a car?
Yeah.
And you get a car, and you get a car. And anyways, thank you so much. We will be back Friday night, 9:30ish. Just stay tuned to our Twitter accounts, and we'll keep you updated on that as well. We will see you then. See you later, guys.
Later.